The most important lever when scaling a sales team is one that is more often than not completely overlooked. It's a sales script. Most companies have like a flow chart. Some of them even have some talking points and questions they need to ask, but most businesses do not have a word-for-word, documented, tested, proven sales script that the rest of the team can use to implement on their calls. I'm Scott Rodriguez. I'm the COO of NetRevenue. We currently manage over 150 sales reps across 40 different companies. Now, the truth is, if we didn't have proper sales scripts for every single company that we operate in, the results that we've generated would be completely impossible. We would plateau, we would not be able to scale, we would get inconsistent results from the team time and time and time again. It wasn't until we started really documenting and testing and building these scripts that we were able to create repeatable growth within these companies. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact process that we use to build a sales script. What are the steps that we actually take? What do we put in the script? How do we test it? How do we document it? And then how do we roll it out to the team? By the end of the video, you'll have everything you need to build, deploy, and test your own sales script within your business so you can start getting repeatable close rates and stop having these valley and peaks of closings when you bring on a new person. All right, so the first step when building your sales script is to actually take sales calls. So if you're the founder and you don't have any sales leadership, then yes, you gotta get on the front lines and you gotta start taking calls because you need some recordings. You need some call recordings of you actually closing deals and following a loose process to start this entire thing off. If you have like a sales manager or a sales director, then obviously they would be taking the calls and then you can use their recordings. But ideally it's whoever's working on the script, whoever's actually documenting and building this process is taking those calls. If you use the recordings from your team members who don't have a good close rate or are not closing at the rate that you want them to be closing on, then your script will just get those similar results, right? We see this all the time. Like we got founders that come to us, they have a sales team, they come with their business and they're like, hey, nobody on my team can close at the rate that I close at. I've tried to hire closers, it doesn't work. I've tried to hire agencies, it doesn't work. Nobody can close at the rate that I close at. And then we listen to their calls and they're following a completely different process than what they've given to their sales team, right? So that's why it needs to be a leader, it needs to be a director, a manager, or you directly who's taking these calls at the beginning, okay? Now the most important part is, one, are you closing at a rate that you would be happy your team is closing at, right? If you're not, then it might not be a sales issue. It's possible that it's a funnel issue or somewhere higher up in the chain of command that's breaking. But if you are, great. Are all your calls starting to sound similar? If they are, great, you can work with that. And then are you recording them, right? So you wanna make sure you're recording them because the next piece of the puzzle is using those recordings to build our script. Okay, so that's the first one, is to actually start taking the calls. The second one has actually changed as of recently with AI, so now we use AI to build all of our scripts. In the past, we would go through and analyze anywhere from 15 to 20 closed calls, and we'd write down word for word, what are the questions being asked and what prompted us to ask that question in the first place, right? So it was like very manual, it took a lot of time, but what happened was we got this script that was based on what was actually happening. Now we use AI, right? So we plug all of those call transcripts into AI. We use Claude for this for the most part. I'm sure any chatbot will work. We plug all the transcripts in and then we prompt it. I can actually drop the prompt somewhere as a resource in this video in the caption. I'll have a resource for it, but we prompt it to pull out all of the questions that the closer is asking, or myself or the founder, all of the questions that we're asking. We prompt it to build basically the framework and the flow of the sales call. Okay, so based on all of the calls that you have so far, the ones that are closing, obviously, what is the overlapping? Like what is the actual flow that we're following? And then document that into a Google Doc. Okay, so we have AI do that completely. Obviously you have to read it and you've taken the calls. So you can go back to your calls and understand where it might be hallucinating because, as we know, AI loves to hallucinate on certain things. And then now we've got this initial bones of a process, right? So what it should give you is basically the flow of how the call should go. And then what questions are asked at each stage in the call, depending on what the prospect has kind of given you and guiding you towards, right? So if they're like, depending what the prospect has kind of given you as their responses. Plus, another really cool part about having AI do this is we all have biases, right? We all believe that certain things have more impact on a sale than maybe they do, especially as the founder. But when you're putting like AI through this and you're giving the transcript through to AI and you're using the prompt that I'm gonna give you guys, it's gonna pull out what actually matters. It's gonna pull out what actually moved the sale forward, not what you thought was important, not what you maybe have your recency bias or your own biases towards to you think is what's moving the sale forward. It's what's actually getting the right responses from the prospect and moving them towards the close, okay? So when we bring on companies and we do this for them, we usually start with anywhere from 50 to 150 call recordings. So we use a lot more. We've got a pretty larger framework that we're building it around, but you don't need to take that many calls to do this. But again, if you already got them, if you've got like 100 closed deals, if you got 200 closed deals all recorded, I would definitely use a bigger sample size when doing this. Now, the third part. So you've taken some sales calls, you've built the groundwork of a process, right? You've had AI review all of it. You've got your talking points, you've got your flow, you've got your questions to ask as closely as possible as like a process to follow. It might not be an exact script yet. The next stage is to actually validate it. Okay, so before giving it to your sales team, you need to get back on calls and you need to actually validate the script. So read through it, read it out loud, memorize it as much as humanly possible, and then jump on your calls and recite as close to the process as you have as possible on the actual calls, okay? This part is so key because if you build this amazing, you've got the process, right? And then you build this amazing script behind it, but the process was never validated, then you're training your team on something that you haven't proven yourself. Okay, and a really key thing to note here is that if you've got different lead sources, like if you've got cold traffic leads or leads that are coming from maybe a live training that you did or a live event that you did, those leads need to be communicated to in a different way. So if you've got leads coming from big different sources that have largely different stages of awareness in your funnel, then you're probably gonna wanna do this for each one, okay? But again, third step now is you validate it, okay? So you get on the front lines, you need to, again, record these, you need to record the process, and then you track your data. Are you closing people at the rate that you wanted to? If yes, then phenomenal. Are you having productive conversations where you're getting people, you feel the process actually moving people through the sale? Great. And then obviously, are you bringing on the right kind of customers? Are you closing people in a way that you're not like only leveraging a guarantee to where everyone refunds XYZ, right? So if all those things are fitting and you're testing it and you're closing, then great, you're ready to move on to the next part. Because now you've got this process that's built and it's tested. So then what I would do at this stage that I've tested it is I'll go back to AI and I would actually take the new recordings where I'm following the process and I would turn it into a word for word script. So now what I would do that I've tested and validated the process is I would take it back into AI and I would reprompt it with the new recordings and with the process in its memory. And I would instruct it to create a word for word script that my team can follow exactly like an actor recites their lines. Okay, which brings us to the last part of building everything, which is handing it off to your team. Okay, so I'm not just gonna hand it off to my team and say good luck. The key here is they need to practice it, right? The same way, like I said, an actor gets his lines, he's not just gonna read off of the script while he's performing his, while he's acting or while he's on stage. He's gonna memorize it beforehand so that he can deliver it with the proper tonality, the right pacing, so that it feels real. Your closers have to do the exact same thing. So many people say, I don't think closers should have a script because it removes them from the conversation. It doesn't feel real. It sounds scripted. We know that's not true because you're not saying that when you're watching a movie or a piece of art. You're not thinking that it sounds scripted because the actors are delivering it in a way where it feels real. And it's the same thing for sales calls, okay? So I need to give them this tool. Usually it's at least like a week to maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks of them just studying it and repping it. Okay, so what I always recommend our closers do is they write it down by hand. So they take the document, whether it's a Google Doc, and they write it down by hand at least 3 to 4 times. Okay, this is probably gonna be a few pages long. So, that's gonna take them obviously some effort and some time, but I recommend at least writing it down 3 to 4 times. Then I recommend is recording it. We do self role plays a lot. So I turn on my camera, I record myself reciting it without looking at the paper, or I look at the paper, but then when I'm talking, I look up, right? So maybe I'll recite one part of it, and then I'll look up and recite the next part. And then this is where I'm able to practice the tonality and pacing, right? So I record myself doing it. Usually we do that like another 5 or 6 times, record myself doing it. And then the third part of the piece is now I'm actually role playing it with the team, okay? So now I'm doing role plays with my team, with my sales manager, where I'm trying to follow the script as closely as humanly possible. Whoever I'm role playing with can have the script up in front of them, but I don't. Again, like I said, you can look down and read, but then come back up every time you speak. Don't speak while reading. You will not remember it nearly the same way. Usually when we're role playing this, what we do is we break it up into parts. Do entire role plays at the beginning, because you're gonna fall too far off process, is we do, okay, just do the intro and then we'll rep it. Okay, great, let's do discovery and then we rep it. Same thing for pitch, objections, XYZ. So the key here is when you treat this script not like something that you have to read on your calls or like a crutch that you have to follow, and you treat it more as like a process that you have to just become a part of and understand and be able to replicate without looking at it or needing it, it's a superpower. And then when you're on your calls, somebody hits you with an objection, you're prepared and you can answer that objection as seamlessly as possible with the right tonality and the right cadence, because you know it like the back of your hand. You've practiced and you've prepared for it. And that's really the power with having a good script, right? Otherwise, you're kind of going through the call blind, and this is where you get these highs and lows in your close rates. These peaks and valleys where your team is like doing really, really well one week, and then all of a sudden the next week, they're not performing. And then you go and listen to their calls and they sound completely different because they're going off of this recency bias and this feedback loop that they're giving themselves that's not really based in reality. It's just based on their last call and how well did it go or not. And they're making these micro adjustments. Versus you've got the script, you've got this framework that they can follow T for T, word for word, and they can replicate it on every single call. And really, like when your team's calls all start to sound the same is when you can genuinely start to scale quickly. You can fill their calendars, you can bring on more closes and put them through an onboarding process where they memorize the script the same way these other ones did, and scaling becomes very, very simple. Now, if you've done all that, you've gone through that process, you now have got a really powerful document that your sales team can use as you scale. You've tested it yourself. You've taken the calls on the front line. You've built the bare bones of the process with AI. You've tested that and documented it as a real script, and then you've trained your team on it word for word, not so that they can read off of it, but so they're like actors and they can recite it with proper tonality and pacing. Now you're pretty much ready to continue to scale your team and get consistent results. And then obviously, as you get more and more feedback from the marketplace, you make adjustments to the script, right? That script should be a live working document where the sales manager or leader can make adjustments to it as we go to prompt better and better performance out of our lead flow. Now, hopefully this is valuable. So again, if you want to work with us and you want to get some help directly from us to implement everything that we're talking about here, this is all we do for a living, right? We build and manage sales teams. We build these sales scripts, we test them, we iterate on them, and then we scale the sales team behind it. If that's you and if you're looking for help to scale, we mainly work with service-based businesses who are doing about $1 million a year. You can click the link below. You can apply on the website. For everybody that applies, we do a free audit on their business. So if we can't work with you or it's not a good fit, you still get a really valuable audit on your exact path to scale. Okay, so exactly what we would do or what we recommend you do to actually scale your business. A lot of companies that we've worked with that we didn't even end up taking them on have said that they would spend $5,000, $6,000 just for that audit alone. But we give it for free, because ultimately it's our way of understanding how can we actually work with you and what the potential is, but then it also gives you that really clear path to scale. So if that's you, click that link, apply. If not, hopefully you got some value from this, and I'll be seeing you on the next video.